Fine. Now let's see the next scheduling algorithm. Okay, it is nothing but highest response ratio next scheduling algorithm. Okay. Now before saying this algorithm, let's see what are the advantages and disadvantages of SJF. Okay, because this algorithm is closely related to that. Okay. Now coming to SJF, the advantage with SJF is its throughput is very high. Okay, its throughput is very high, which means the number of processes executed per unit time or completed per unit time is very high. That is the advantage of SJF. Okay, now how this is achieved, how this through, see, the advantage is nothing but it has a very high throughput. Now how does this SJF scheduling algorithm achieves highest throughput? Because it always considers the shortest processes. Okay, it always considers the shortest processes. You see, let's forget about SRTF. Okay, let us assume we are, as of now we are only seeing about non-preemptive scheduling algorithm, because highest response ratio next scheduling algorithm is also a non-preemptive scheduling algorithm. Okay, among the non-preemptive scheduling algorithms, the algorithm with the best throughput is nothing but SJF. Okay, SJF is the best scheduling algorithm in case of non-preemptive scheduling algorithms. Fine. Now its advantages is that the number of processes completed per unit time is highest among all non-preemptive scheduling algorithms. This is achieved because this is possible because it always takes the processes with the least burst time. Okay, it always takes the process with the least burst time, which means it always takes the smallest processes, and so it is able to complete more number of processes within a given time frame. Okay, fine. Now because of this, we have seen that it has one disadvantage, that higher processes, which means processes with the high burst time. Okay, higher processes or larger processes, let's not say use the word higher. Okay, it is awkward actually. Larger processes, which means processes with the big burst IDs. Okay, processes which is having large burst ID, large burst times will actually starve, right? Will starve. It is not will starve, it may starve. Okay, it may starve, it may wait indefinitely. Okay, or it will starve, both are same. Now why this happen? Because see, this will happen only if the number of processes created in our computer is infinite. Okay, infinite number of processes, which means to our RAM, processes with the shortest burst times might keep on arriving, which means processes with the highest priority might keep on arriving, thus making the larger burst time processes to starve. Okay, they are not able to get the CPU because processes with the shorter burst times keep on arriving to the RAM and they get hold of the CPU. That is the disadvantage with this. Now what we shall do is, let's sacrifice some advantage and let's actually have some algorithm which also achieves a decent throughput. Okay, it is not as good as SJF, but it achieves a decent throughput. Also, it reduces the starvation problem. Okay, can we have such an algorithm? That is the basic idea of highest response ratio next scheduling algorithm. Okay, now what the scheduling algorithm is a non-preemptive scheduling algorithm. Fine. And for every process we need to use something called as response ratio. Okay, response ratio equal to W plus B divided by B, where W equal to waiting time of a process so far, B equal to burst time. Okay, B equal to burst time. See, for every process we can calculate the response ratio. See, in case of shortest job for scheduling algorithm, we can have burst time for every processes. Okay, out of these many processes, in case if our scheduling algorithm needs to choose one among three processes, in case of SJF, what were we doing? The process with the shortest burst time will be picked by our scheduling algorithm. Okay, now here what will happen is, among the available processes, the process with the highest response ratio will be picked by the scheduling algorithm. Okay, instead of the process with the shortest burst time, we are actually picking the process with the highest response ratio in case of this HRRN. It is also called as HRRN. Okay, next scheduling algorithm. Fine. Now what is meant by W is, it is the waiting time of a process so far, B equal to burst time. See, as W increases, this ratio will definitely increase, right? As numerator increases, this fraction's value will increase, as a result of which this response ratio will increase. Now higher the response ratio, more chances of that process being picked, okay, which means we are actually increasing the priority of this process, okay, that is what we mean by this. So what we are actually doing is, we are actually giving higher priority to processes, we are giving more importance to processes which has been waiting for a long time, okay. See, if a process is waiting for a very long time without getting the CPU, this W will be very high, right? Because this is nothing but the waiting time for that process. For that process, this W will be very high, and so the value of this fraction will become very high, and so this response ratio will become very high, and so there is very high chance that this process will be preferred next, okay, by our scheduling algorithm. So we are actually making sure that a process with the highest waiting time, which a process which is waiting for a very long time, we are trying to schedule that process, okay. We are not making that process to starve, okay, fine. Also it has one more advantage. It also deals with one more thing called as burst time. Now it has actually addressed this problem, the problem of starvation using this W. Also it is dealing with the burst time. See, in order to achieve better throughput, we need to pick the process with the least burst time, that's for sure. So as B increases, B is nothing but the burst time, okay. Burst time your process needs to execute further. Now as B increases, the value of this fraction will decrease, okay. You can check it, you can check any number for values W and B, you can check, substitute some numbers and you can check. You will find that as B increases, this ratio will decrease, okay. As B increases, this ratio will decrease. What does it mean? In case if the burst time of a process is higher, that process might have to wait, okay. In case if the burst time of a process is very less, which means if that process is a shorter process, then that process should be preferred next, okay. See, as B decreases, this response ratio will increase. As B increases, this response ratio will decrease. So one thing is for sure, shorter processes will have higher response ratio. Why? Because as B decreases, response ratio will increase. So shorter processes will have the highest response ratio, and our scheduling algorithm is nothing but it will pick the process the highest response ratio, right? It will pick the process among all the processes which are in the ready state. It will pick the process with the highest response ratio. So using this, we are able to deal two things. We are able to pick the process with the very long waiting time, as well as we are able to even pick the processes which has a very short burst time, okay. So we are dealing both the throughput as well as we are also reducing the starvation time, okay. We are also reducing the indefinite waiting time, okay. That is what the basic idea of this algorithm. I know you might find it a bit difficult to understand this problem, so this concept. So let's first solve a problem, okay. It will become very easy. It's not that difficult as it looks like.